Before changing someone's hair color became the iconic way to signify a transformation or a power-up in Dragon Ball, there was the Great Ape form. That's right, the Oozaru. We saw Goku do it, we saw Goku's son Gohan do it, but what is the mystery and mysticism behind the Oozaru form? Where did Toriyama get inspiration from? And just what are the origins of the Great Ape transformation? Well, on this edition of Dragon Ball In Depth, we go behind the scenes and peel back the curtain to tell you everything you need to know about the mystery of the Oozaru.
The
first time we saw Goku ever transform into a Great Ape was Dragon Ball Manga Chapter 22, which correlates with Dragon Ball Episode 13. In order to understand Toriyama's mindset behind giving Goku a transformation into a Great Ape, one must examine the original story that Dragon Ball was based out of, which is Journey to the West. More specifically, its lead character, Sun Wukong, to which Goku is directly derived from. While Goku transforms into an ape, Wukong actually is an ape with a staff and with a cloud, just like Goku. And if you look at some of the early character designs and early concept art for Dragon Ball, one of the original looks for Goku was an actual monkey, but later on was changed to that of a small humanoid boy. But Toriyama's idea of an ape was still in the back of his head, and we would see it come to fruition with the transformation. Now, in Journey to the West, Sun Wukong has the ability to transform himself into various different forms, but the one that comes closest to the Oozaru transformation is when he can grow larger, up to 100,000 meters tall. Now, obviously, Wukong can do it at will, whereas Goku has to be staring into the moon, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, obviously, Journey to the West was a great influence to Toriyama and to Dragon Ball, but it was certainly not the only one. Toriyama loved giant monster kaiju movies, and none resemble the Oozaru more than 1933's King Kong. And just like Japan's counterpart Godzilla, King Kong is hugely popular in Japan and a film that Toriyama saw when he was very young. And naturally, he would base the look of the Oozaru on King Kong. Little known fact though, there are actually a couple of Japanese exclusive King Kong knockoff sequels that came out in the 30s that predate Godzilla by about 2 decades. So King Kong was actually, in a roundabout way, Japan's first giant monster, also known as kaiju. The word Oozaru is somewhat of a play on the word Kaibutsuzaru, which stands for ape monkey. I'm not going to get into the entire etymology or break down the kanji of the word Oozaru and really break down exactly what everything means, but just understand that it's pretty much derived from the fact that in kaiju cinema, a lot of giant monsters have nicknames for their species, and it's easier just to use Oozaru than Kaibutsuzaru. However, the word Oozaru was used in Japan prior to Dragon Ball in an episode of Ultra Q from 1962, featuring a lab monkey that escaped and transformed and became gigantic, and they referred to him as Oozaru. So Toriyama's borrowing from there as well. Throughout the years, a lot of people have wondered why it is that Toriyama wrote it so that Goku only transformed in the moonlight, which is obviously written as somewhat of a story convenience, especially with the situation that Goku and the gang were in when he first transformed. And of course, like most of us, we astutely picked up on the fact that Toriyama was inspired by the Wolfman, or werewolves, men who stare at the moon and become wolves. In this case, Goku stares at the moon and becomes a giant ape. But what I find very fascinating is that if you look at the Tenkaichi Densetsu interview with Toriyama, he actually states that he originally wanted the Oozaru transformation to be just an at-will transformation. In other words, he wanted Goku to be able to tap into that power whenever he wanted to, and then later, as he was writing the story, change it to it being at the moonlight. Perhaps Toriyama felt that Goku would be too powerful, but no worries. As the series progressed, we soon found out that Goku would have tons and tons of more transformations and power to tap into whenever he needed it. Now, one of the more interesting facets of Goku's transformation, which was really explored a lot more later on with Gohan, is the fact that when you become an Oozaru, you still have somewhat of a semblance of control, even though it's not really entirely in there. So Toriyama wrote it as if there were two Gokus or two Gohans. You've got the lighthearted, happy boy, then you've got the monster inside. And of course, we later found out why that monster is inside when Goku's brother showed up, but that's a different story. These two sides to Goku's personality represent the yin and the yang, and when he goes into his Oozaru form, the yin consumes the yang, and he becomes an unstoppable killing machine. You could make the comparison to the Incredible Hulk as well. Very spiritual stuff, and Toriyama uses that here to kind of explain why Goku is so out of control. Now, unlike Sun Wukong, Goku's Oozaru form does have a weakness, and that is, of course, his tail. If you cut off his tail, same thing with his son Gohan, he will lose his Oozaru form and go back into his humanoid form. The reason why Toriyama chose to remove Goku's tail is outlined in Dragon Ball Z's full-color comics Frieza Arc Volume 5 in an interview where he says that the tail was such a nuisance when he was drawing it that he couldn't stand it, so he had to come up with a way where his tail gets cut off. So that is classic Toriyama to a T. During the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai, Goku once again became an Oozaru, and during the tournament, Muten Roshi, disguised as Jackie Chun, destroyed the moon, and this would be the last time we would ever see Goku in his Oozaru form. But much later in the series, in what I consider to be Toriyama's greatest retcon ever, we saw the return of the lore of Goku becoming a great ape with his son Gohan, as well as the arrival of his brother Raditz, who told Goku the truth about his heritage, that in fact he was not human, that he was from the planet Vegeta, and that's why he was able to become a great ape. And that's why his son would also become a great ape. When Toriyama got to writing the Dragon Ball Z portion of the story, you could tell that he sort of went back and re-examined his lore and kind of converted it from a mystical, kind of Chinese-influenced adventure to a much more science fiction-y type of quest, where Toriyama would explain a lot of the actual mysticism by saying that, well, Goku was an alien the entire time. In Dragon Ball Z, it's explained primarily by Vegeta that all Saiyans are born with tails, and that in order to become a great ape, one must stare directly at the moon, well, directly at sunlight being reflected from the moon, which represents Brutes waves, and these waves, once linked to the pupils, would initiate the transformation. There has to be at least 17 million Zeno units of Brutes waves for it to actually work. We also find out a couple of very interesting tidbits about the transformation when it comes to these super elites. Turns out that the super elites have an ability to create a ball of energy made of Brutes waves, which creates an artificial moon and can throw it into the skies and stare at it, and it acts as a moon and allowing the individual to transform into an Oozaru. This became very handy when they were in tight spots in their planetary tirades. And of course, in the original Ocean dub, Vegeta remarks that it was Goku's father who was a brilliant scientist and came up with this, but this is in fact not true and still remains as one of the most legendary dub changes from the 90s DBZ Ocean dub era. The other interesting thing about the Super Elites is not only can they artificially create a moon to become an Oozaru, once they are in the form, they actually have the ability to control themselves. So unlike Goku and Gohan in their youths would rampage and lose control of who they were, the elites were able to retain their consciousness and do battle while remaining in their powered up state. Plus, a vast majority of these elites were outfitted with special armor that actually stretches out as they grow larger to provide more protection, as well as to prevent them from winding up naked when the transformation would subside. For those who may have forgotten, when one transforms into a great ape, their power level is multiplied by 10, which might not seem like a lot when you have the super powered god forms of Dragon Ball Super, but back in the early Dragon Ball Z era, a 10 times multiplier was quite a bit of power. As the series progressed, Toriyama kind of forgot about the Oozaru forms and focused mostly on the golden-haired transformations and its subsequent evolutions. And even though we never really got an answer as to why Goten and Trunks don't have tails, one can assume that either Toriyama forgot or maybe Chi-Chi and Bulma had their tails removed when they were born to prevent this kind of outbreak from ever happening again. However, Dragon Ball GT would resurrect the Great Ape form with a new twist. In Dragon Ball GT, after having his tail regrown and staring at the full Earth, Goku transforms once again into an Oozaru, but this time becomes a golden Oozaru, which seems to have a significant increase in power, way stronger than any transformation prior to. But what never made sense to me is how the Earth itself had Brutes waves. This isn't really explained very well, but I guess at some point, because of some kind of reflection, possibly from Planet Plant itself, triggered something in Goku to tap into this new form. Honestly, it really doesn't make much sense, but we then find out shortly afterward that Bulma, under the control of Baby, creates a Brutes Wave generator and transforms Baby Vegeta into a Great Ape as well. This at least makes more sense, as well as follows the scientific route that Dragon Ball Z took. Bulma would of course bust out the Brutes Wave machine one more time during the fight with the evil dragon so that Vegeta could unlock Super Saiyan 4. Now, I'd hate to bring up the elephant in the room, or should I say the monkey in the room, but the Oozaru form did come back kinda sort of in Dragon Ball Evolution, but it was all fucked up because basically in that movie they explained that instead of it being a transformation, that Oozaru is actually like a god that worked together with Piccolo to screw up the Earth before being imprisoned. And they never really explained Goku's alien heritage or his tail or any of that stuff in the movie. It was just that, I guess, Goku was originally an Oozaru and then he became a human. I mean, it's just for the movie. It really makes no sense compared to the series. However, in the Dragon Ball GT Perfect Files guidebooks, the books speculate that the Saiyan race was actually originally Oozaru and later on would evolve and become more intelligent and, I guess, downgrade themselves into their humanoid form. But of course, that's from the GT Perfect Files. I don't know if I really count that as being official, but it might be a source of where the creators of Dragon Ball Evolution got their ideas from. But really, who knows? And honestly, who cares, right? With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you learned something about the Oozaru transformation, its roots, and its journey. And maybe we'll see it again someday, but who really knows? Thanks for watching. I'll catch you down the road.